not interested.
christiangeekcentral.com. Do you like games? I like games too. I like games too.
Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. E3 2019 is just around the corner. This could be a very different year with Sony being absent for, I believe, the first time in the event's history. As always, though, there could be big announcements, big promises, and ultimately big disappointments in the end coming out of this event. I really always enjoy going along with some of the hype, but I still try to keep my expectations in check. With that in mind, I'm going to share both my jaded predictions and my unreasonable wish list for E3 2019, starting with predictions and wishes for publisher showcase events, followed by wishes for just games in general I'd like to have announced, and finally a few wishes for E3 in general. Now, I've got no special insider information, but a number of my past wish list items have come true, so we'll see what happens this year. And stay tuned between June 8th through the 14th. I'm going to be posting videos throughout that time in reaction to what I see and hear as I just immerse myself in as much of the online coverage as I can find. For now, here are my jaded predictions and unreasonable wishes for E3 2019. Starting with EA, they are not technically doing a conference or anything really at E3, but they've got their EA Play event, which is all day on June 8th. There might even be some stuff on Friday the 7th, I'm not sure. Anyway, the timing of the EA Play event, I think, still makes it effectively part of the E3 conversation. So the games that they've said are going to be featured as part of their event include Apex Legends, Anthem, there'll be some exclusive new Battlefield 5 content, some new EA sports games of some kind, and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Now, EA has such an uphill battle to win back not just my trust, but at this point even my interest. You know, Apex Legends, Anthem, and Battlefield 5 are all multiplayer-focused experiences, which just doesn't interest me at all. BioWare was the only studio EA had that was making games that interested me as someone who's a real RPG fan primarily, but they've wandered so far from the reasons that I loved them, and many among the old-school development staff at BioWare have long since left the studio. So my jaded prediction for EA is that the memories of Kotaku's expose about the troubled development of Anthem is just going to keep me from even hoping that Jedi Fallen Order will end up as a product that interests me. You know, I think details are going to be too vague for me to get a sense of what the normal gameplay for Fallen Order will be like, making me wonder if, like Anthem, the developers don't even know at this point what kind of game it's going to be in the end. I have three wishes, though. My first wish is that trading out a press conference for, you know, an extended period of live streams featuring developer commentary, which is the plan this year, and developer insight and stuff. My hope and wish is that that will help me care about at least one EA game, probably Jedi Fallen Order. That's the most likely candidate, I would guess, but I'm not sure. Because sometimes getting those developers in there, passionately talking about their projects, getting the corporate suits out of the way, you know, they might help win me over and gain some of my sympathy a little bit. My second wish is... it's a long shot. Okay, THQ Nordic, which I'm going to talk about later, bought the rights to future games in the Kingdoms of Amalur series, but EA still apparently has the rights to publish Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, which originally came out during the Xbox 360 generation. It was a almost open world action RPG that I really enjoyed. So I'm wishing that EA will announce a PS4 remaster to try and capitalize on the potentially renewed interest in the future of the franchise, since it has new hope with THQ. There may not actually be renewed interest. THQ's been buying a whole bunch of stuff up, but I'm hoping that EA will at least think that could be enough in it for them to do a quick repolish and re-release of the game for people to enjoy on modern consoles. We'll see. My third and final wish for EA is that we'll see something substantial from Dragon Age 4. That will give me a reason to believe that despite it already being revealed as a games as service kind of game, that it will still cater to single player fans like me and show indications. Gosh, this is a crazy wish, I think. Show indications that it's returning even more to the series' roots than Dragon Age Inquisition did. That feels like a long shot, but we'll see. Microsoft is holding their press event, or I guess it's a whatever it is, showcase these days. You know, EA's changed so much, but that's going to be on Sunday, June 9th at 1 p.m. Pacific. This could be the year that Microsoft wins me back. They've just been doing some really interesting things over the last year, buying up studios, which they talked about a little bit at last year's E3. The new Xbox console is almost certainly not going to be my next-gen console of choice. I just had too many hardware problems and got burned by the Xbox 360. But with the right exclusives, they could get me planning my budget to buy their new console maybe sometime in the middle of its upcoming life cycle when it's, really at close to its cheapest. So I've got 3 Jaded predictions this year, given kind of how things went last year. The first one is there will be no AAA exclusives with even alpha gameplay to show. It's just going to be maybe logos, concept designs, and stuff. Man, I'd love to get a lot more than that, but I think it's probably too early. My second Jaded prediction is that the show will largely be padded with goodwill gestures and promises for the future, with nothing happening that's really exciting to me in the next 6 months, which is what I'd really like. I kind of doubt that. My third Jaded prediction is that there will be some kind of appearance by Nintendo on their stage, given their recent kind of a partnership with them, which fans of Nintendo and Xbox alike will probably go nuts over, but I will only find curious and interesting because I'm not a Nintendo fan. All right, my wishes now. I want to know what Obsidian is up to. Microsoft just a few months ago bought Obsidian, which are the creators of Pillars of Eternity, which has been really successful, and they created Knights of the Old Republic 2 and New Vegas, Fallout New Vegas, So these guys have a new game called Outer Worlds, which we've seen a little bit of and is supposed to be coming out in 2019. I want to get a deep dive into the Outer Worlds. This thing is supposed to be, it looks like it's inspired by their work with Fallout in the past, but it's not near that big, they've been cautious to say. It's more like a Knights of the Old Republic length type of experience. But anyway, it looks really cool to me, like something that's probably going to be an insta-buy, but I'd still like to get a deep dive into that. And even more than that, I would love to know what Obsidian is up to aside from the Outer Worlds, because the Outer Worlds was well into production when the Obsidian was acquired by Microsoft. So I want to know what they're working on that's going to be exclusive to Microsoft, since Outer Worlds is still coming to PlayStation 4. So anyway, yeah, I'd love to get either of those things when it comes to Obsidian. My next wish is that we'll get a first reveal of their new console, including a price that is below $400 and a release window. We'll see. I mean, they've actually got kind of 2 consoles, it sounds like, in the works. One that doesn't have, that may not have a disc involved, or I don't know. I just want to see a big console reveal with a price tag that's just under, or way under, we'll see, $400. That's probably really unrealistic. Then my next wish is that the new console will read original Xbox discs. I'm talking about, the console before Xbox 360. I would buy their new console just to have a Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance player. I feel like that generation, the PS2 and original Xbox generation, and the PS1 generation too, we're just running out of ways to play many of the games that are not quite popular enough to get a port to new consoles or on the PlayStation Network or something like that. I think Xbox is doing some wonderful things with backwards compatibility for the 360 generation. I'd love to see a way that we can preserve and enjoy those games from the original Xbox PS2 era. So I'd love that, or that they would otherwise just surprise me in some way with the degree of their backwards compatibility efforts, because I want Sony to compete. I really want Sony to get off their butts when it comes to backwards compatibility. My next wish is that their Play Anywhere initiative will turn out to include PlayStation consoles, and they will announce the Zero Exclusives Revolution, which is just, that's really a ridiculous idea, I realize. But wouldn't people go nuts? Wouldn't that be crazy? That would make for some really good, shocking entertainment at E3 this year. And my final wish, which is almost as unlikely, is that Nintendo will come on stage and announce that Mario Maker for the Wii U, not their upcoming Mario Maker 2, Mario Maker for the Wii U and or other Wii U titles are coming to the Xbox One. Wouldn't people go nuts about that kind of thing too, to see Mario or other Nintendo IP on an Xbox console? That'd be nuts. It's not going to happen, but crap, people would lose their minds. The Bethesda conference is on Sunday, June 9th at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Oh man, I'm a big fan of the Bethesda open world RPGs, but they're also a publisher that, publishes a bunch of other types of games. But on the open world RPG front, between Oblivion and then Skyrim and then Fallout 4, we're about 4 years of development time between each of those releases. Presumably, they are finally updating their engine for Starfield and future Elder Scrolls games, which is why we haven't seen another open-world RPG from them in that same kind of time frame. But it still feels like it's been way too long since the last real Elder Scrolls game. Add to that the recent disappointments from the publisher overall in the form of Fallout 76 and now Rage 2, and I'm really wanting them to kind of win back my trust and my excitement about their products a bit. There is some potential for them to do that this year, but their last 2 years at E3 have left me a bit let down and wanting more. So my first Jaded prediction is that Doom Eternal will be the main focus, with some multiplayer-focused game taking kind of second place as far as like time given to showcasing a single game. I think that's probably going to be the case this year. My second Jaded prediction is that they will spend some time talking up Elder Scrolls Online, even trying to sell it a little bit as a solo player experience, as maybe kind of a maneuver to placate solo RPG gamers that really just want a single player Elder Scrolls game, while they are slowly chipping away at Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6, which, if even mentioned, will have projected release dates no earlier than 2021 and 2024, respectively. All right, excuse me. My first wish. I've got 4 wishes for Bethesda. First is that private servers for Fallout 76 will be made available, be announced. Gosh, it'd be great if they were available like right now, but at least a date for private servers to be announced. And then like some kind of campaign elements. Basically, I want something of a normal Fallout experience minus real VATs, because I know they can't do that in the way they've set up the game. But some reason to get me into the game where I can play it by myself, and a bit like a Conan Exiles private server type situation. My second wish is that Doom Eternal will be showcased to specifically show gameplay changes that appeal to me. Despite my ultimate disinterest in the last Doom game, maybe some mechanics will be introduced that will make it appeal to me more. That would be awesome. Let's see. My third wish, and this has been on my annual E3 wish list since 2015, has not been granted yet. I still think it's possible. Not plausible, but possible. And that is assuming that I can't have an Elder Scrolls 6 this year. I would love to get a 2019 release date for Skyrim, what I call Skyrim New Vegas. In other words, do I have something on my lip? I've been feeling something on my lip for the last little bit here. Anyway, Skyrim New Vegas. In other words, this would be an offshoot Elder Scrolls game that plays just like Skyrim in the Skyrim engine, but like Fallout New Vegas, is not another main entry in the series. Fallout New Vegas, as I mentioned earlier, was outsourced to the developer Obsidian, and Bethesda certainly could have likewise quietly outsourced an Elder Scrolls offshoot that would be ready to release on consoles this fall. We don't know. My final wish, and I think this one's fairly likely, is that Wolfenstein Youngblood, which is coming out July 26th, will get some kind of a deep dive that gives me confidence that it will be another great and doable, as far as my crappy player skills are concerned, Wolfenstein experience. I think there's a pretty good shot at that, but we'll see. Now, I'm not really a PC gamer, but I do like watching the PC gaming show. That's going to be June 10th at 10 a.m. Pacific. I've found a few experiences that I can enjoy that are not on consoles that my PC can still run, and so that's really the main reason I'd want to track with this. But I don't expect much to float my boat in the PC gaming show. My Jaded prediction, just one of them, is that the Heavily charismatic hosts of the show will be working from a script that makes me want to groan and roll my eyes frequently. Now, this was just a minor annoyance, last year. I feel like they've been evolving the show in really some positive ways, and it's been a step forward every year for my tastes in what I would like the format of the show to be. Last year, definitely improvement from the year before, but I did think it was just interesting, Maybe if it could just come across a little more natural in how they host it, that would be great. But anyway, that's a minor thing. Really been enjoying it. My first wish is of two, is that they would cover single player strategy and RPG style games that will also be coming to console. So this would be kind of like a bonus chance for me to hear about games that maybe aren't getting attention in the other big shows, but would still be relevant to me as a console gamer, And then I'd also like to hear about PC exclusive games, maybe like indie or AA titles that have low system requirements that my PC will still run. So that would be great. And my second wish is to see indications that the gap between PC and console gaming is getting smaller. Maybe a great start would be an increasing trend for gamepad UIs to be included as a standard feature in PC games that are normally made with keyboard and mouse in mind. Now, PC gamers, don't get mad. I'm not saying in place of or prioritizing console UIs. I know I'm asking for a ridiculous thing here, but I would like to have both UIs equally available in games and for that to be an increasing trend so that we see more and more crossover between PC and console gaming. We'll see. Ubisoft's event is Monday, June 10th at 1 p.m. Pacific. It's probably the event I'm most looking forward to in all of E3. I have really become a big fan of Ubisoft games these days. The Far Cry series and Ghost Recon Wildlands are some of my favorite games of all time. And I also really like many of the Assassin's Creed games, especially the last two that went for a more open, or like an RPG type thing with their open world. The only open world Ubisoft game that hasn't really stuck the landing with me in recent years would be Watch Dogs 2, which I never played the first one, but I came to the series with 2, as many people did. I loved the open world, but the timed puzzles in some of the story missions just became too frustrating to me, and so sadly I left unfinished a game that I otherwise would have loved if they'd only stuck to puzzles where I had plenty of time to execute on them. That really would be my preference. My jaded prediction is that they will reveal a new Watch Dogs game for the first half of 2020, but it will be even heavier on timed puzzles, meaning it's just not going to be the game for me, despite how much I enjoyed the open world of Watch Dogs 2. Now, they got ahead of the game of E3 this year by announcing Ghost Recon Breakpoint before E3. Breakpoint is the sequel to Ghost Recon Wildlands, which was my game of the year for 2017, really taking me by surprise. I loved that game. And Breakpoint is coming in early October. Now, I'm definitely on board. It's probably going to be an insta-buy unless I see some serious red flags, but, I do have some reservations. There are no AI teammates when you're playing solo with this game, which means that there's not going to be any AI teammates manning guns in vehicles that, have mounted weapons as I'm driving around, and I also won't be able to be revived if I go down, by one of my AI teammates, which I didn't need frequently, but often enough that it would be frustrating to die the same number of times and not be able to be revived. You do still get sync shot with drones where you can set up shots for them to do for you while so you can take out 3 guys at once to avoid, an alert situation in an outpost that you're trying to take down. So that's still in there, but the other elements I might really be missing. I also enjoyed Ghost Recon Wildlands, in large part due to the fact that I used a guide early on to find the best sniper rifle earlier than I normally would have just organically playing the game, and I was also playing the game on the lowest difficulty. Now, by the time I did finish, I thought, I'll bet I could do this again without the benefit of getting that sniper rifle as early as I did. Still on the lowest difficulty, but without that benefit. So, anyway, I'm just not sure that I'm going to enjoy this game like I did Wildlands because of some of the changes and, specifically the changes that might affect difficulty for me. My wish is that we'll get a deep dive into Breakpoint, including a look at the variable difficulty options that they plan to provide that indicate that I can tailor various aspects of the game to suit my low skill level, or other indications that it won't be too hard for me without those AI teammates. My second wish is that we'll get... Am I on my second wish? No, this is my third or so, I don't know what I... Anyway, next wish, that's a look at Beyond Good and Evil 2's open world gameplay. I don't have any particular investment in this IP. I never played the first one, but ever since hearing this is going to be an open world game for Ubisoft, I'm like, hey, sure, a space traveling open world game, that sounds really cool to me, you know? And so I'd love to see more on that game, but specifically, I really want something to help me believe that I can stomach playing a game heavily featuring talking animals. I hate talking animals. And yet I really enjoy the formula of most Ubisoft open world games, and man, I'd love to enjoy this one too, so we'll see. And then my final wish for Ubisoft has been on my wish list since 2017. Oh man, it's a long shot. It's a long shot, as all of these are probably, but I want a new open world franchise based on the Terminator. Ubisoft can deliver this, you know, and why has no one made a city-based open world game where you can play as the Terminator going around taking out different targets like from the Resistance timeline or whatever? You know, we already in so many open city games are like going up to random cars, telling random civilians to get out, you know, and we just take their car, we do what we want, and we're just on a mission to get from point A to point B, and nothing is going to get in our way. That's how we play a lot of those open city games. It's just a natural fit for the Terminator IP, where you play as the Terminator going and taking out targets. I mean, my gosh. Ubisoft has also worked with license holders like those that have the license to Predator, which was part of a Ghost Recon Wildlands DLC event. So they know how to do deals in that licensing world. So please, Ubisoft, make this deal for me. Oh my gosh, I would freak out. Square Enix is taking the time slot traditionally held by Sony for their press conference, and it's just going to be like a video event like it was last year, but hopefully not too much like it was last year. Again, June 10th, 6 p.m. Pacific. I was really disappointed in the Square Enix video presentation last year, but I do think there's lots of potential this year, given that, again, they're taking Sony's traditional time slot, which may be a way of saying, hey, we got stuff that you should pay attention to. And there's also 3 games they have that I'm interested in to varying degrees. That said, my jaded prediction is that we're going to get mostly non-gameplay footage of Final Fantasy VII Remake and a release date for Part 1 that's no earlier than 2021. My second jaded prediction is that some Life is Strange related news will make other players happy, but it won't interest me at all. My third jaded prediction is that we'll get a generally out-of-touch, uninformative presentation. It'll be less than 25 minutes, with mostly visual aesthetics being shown off as the selling point for their titles, without really getting into gameplay and stuff that I'm actually interested in. My first wish of 4 for Square Enix is that Final Fantasy VII Remake gets most of the time with a 2020 or earlier release date for Part 1 and a demo of gameplay systems that makes it appeal to me and gives me hope that, oh man, despite them not doing turn-based and going again in a different direction because they just seem to be afraid of doing turn-based RPGs anymore, they're doing some things that will be cool. I mean, that would be really exciting. Well, it wouldn't be exciting, honestly, if I'm being real, but it would be nice. They've really gone off the rails for me when it comes to Final Fantasy. And anyway, my next wish is that some time would be given to Dragon Quest Builders 2. This one's coming out in July, so, you know, maybe they won't feel like they need to give it a bunch of time, but I would love a deep dive that specifically showcases the new features of Dragon Quest Builders 2, because I enjoyed the first one, and I am really looking forward to the second one. My next wish is that there'd be a new Tokyo RPG Factory game. This is a little, like a studio within Square Enix that specifically is making games that have a retro aesthetic, even though they have, you know, updated, nice-looking, you know, modern-looking graphics, but it's kind of like that top-down SNES kind of perspective of role-playing games, and it's usually like turn-based or some variant of turn-based, and it's games that, because they're not as extravagant, can be pumped out in a turnaround time of, like, you know, a year or 18 months or something like that. They've produced 2 games so far. The first one is I Am Setsuna, which I thought looked like it would be right up my alley, but ultimately I played it and lost interest in it halfway through, and Lost Sphere, which, because it got kind of negative reviews, I didn't even try. So, but I would like to see something else from Tokyo RPG Factory, because, hey, third time's the charm, right? And maybe they'll get it right this time. Or just some other cool PS4 news related to a classic Square RPG, like a remaster or something like that would be neat. And then my final wish, and this is on a lot of people's wish lists and predictions, I'm sure, but, they've got this Avengers game that they're supposed to be or probably going to be revealing maybe this year at E3, so I'd love that to not only be revealed, but for us to get a deep dive and a 2019 release date. I don't think I've ever been more of a Marvel fan than I am right now in the wake of Endgame and just how well that whole franchise kind of like wrapped up from the last 10 years, and so I am ready. I'm stoked to do some Marvel-y kind of video gaming. Speaking of Marvel-y type video games, Nintendo is having their event on June 11th, Tuesday, June 11th at 9 a.m. Pacific, and of course they've got that Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 game that's been getting a lot of buzz lately, but I haven't bought a Nintendo home console for myself since the Super Nintendo. We did get a Wii for our two boys, but that's it. The cute, family-friendly aesthetic of first-party Nintendo games are just not my thing. Neither is the fall and die gameplay of Mario. That tends to be my experience when I try to play one of those games. My jaded prediction is that the Nintendo Direct will largely focus on one or more cute Nintendo IPs that just don't interest me at all. My two wishes, though. First is that Nintendo will change their plans for their legacy games that came out on consoles previous to the Switch. As far as I know, there seems to be no plan for any older generation Nintendo games to be purchasable and playable on the Switch through an online store. Instead, they offer a Netflix-style subscription to give you access to a limited selection of games as long as you are subscribing. If I could purchase and outright own all of the Symphony of the Night games that came to Game Boy Advance and a Nintendo DS, if I could own all those outright on the Switch, I'd really consider buying a Switch just to play all those games on a TV screen. And if I could buy any past-gen game on a Switch eShop, just give me the option to just buy any of them that I wanted, it would probably make the Switch an insta-buy for me. And my last wish, Reggie Fils-Aimé has retired, and now Doug Bowser is the new president for Nintendo of America. Really interested. I mean, of course, people have been commenting on his last name and how interesting that is, that he's now the president for Nintendo of America. My wish is that he'll be in the Direct. I think there's a very good chance of that, and that he'll make a great first impression with fans and introduce some updated thinking when it comes to how Nintendo does business, how they protect their IPs, and how they provide services to fans. I think just Nintendo is really in kind of a gated, locked down, kind of old school mentality when it comes to a number of those things. So I'd love for Doug Bowser to bring a freshness that shows an interest in attracting more than just kids and those who already love Nintendo and their existing properties. I'm curious about that X factor that he might bring. So looking forward to what Nintendo has. Sony does not have anything scheduled for E3, but I think it's very possible that the ghost of Sony can still kind of be part of the conversation and haunt the event throughout the week. They've still got Death Stranding, that there's a rumor that a trailer might be released during the week of E3. There's still Ghosts of Tsushima and The Last of Us Part 2 that are big titles that people are interested in that maybe they could reveal some information about. So we'll just see. I mean, my jaded prediction is that absolutely nothing from Sony or its reps will be announced or leaked from June 8th through June 13th, and there will be no reason to talk about Sony apart from wondering what they will do next in light of their competitors or third-party partners' E3 reveals. My first of two wishes is that although they will have no press event or state of play video during E3, I'm wishing that they will announce that a state of play is incoming immediately following E3 week, or post one just before E3 week. That would be really cool, so that they're still kind of part of the buzz and the conversation. Right before would be ideal, but we'll see. And then my final wish is that Sony will somehow just get an interesting, provocative message out there in some way through maybe other parties that are present at E3, or they'll just make an exciting announcement online somewhere during E3 week, like PlayStation 2, disc-based, backwards compatibility, been on this wish list since 2015. Come on. I know, I'm totally kidding myself, but man, my PS2 is... It's not going to last forever. Controllers are dying. I'm having to open that thing up and monkey it to get the thing to work, and sometimes, all those games like Justice League Heroes, Shadow Hearts, Champions of Norath, some of these games that just, they don't seem to have any interest in reporting to newer consoles are just going to be lost. They're just going to be lost without a way to read those discs. Give us a way to read those discs. That kind of an announcement would be great. In the middle of E3, just take us totally by surprise. Okay, let's finish off with some rapid-fire wishes for the whole week of E3 in general, followed by some games that I would love to be surprised to see materialize and be announced during the week. First off, just in general, we've got a few events that I'm going to be checking out. Limited Run is going to be doing an event June 10th, noon Pacific. Kinda Funny Games Showcase is doing something June 10th at 4:30, and Devolver Digital is doing something on June 10th, 7 p.m. Pacific. All these kind of like events you should be able to watch online, all likely showcasing indie and AA titles. I would love to see something in any one of those that is kind of exciting to me, maybe an RPG or a title that just appeals to me and surprises me in some way for its ambition or scope on a indie or AA budget. THQ Nordic, this is a huge X factor for me. They don't have any event announced. I'm recording this, by the way, on Thursday, May 23rd, so some of this, I apologize if it's out of date, but THQ Nordic hasn't made any announcements I'm aware of that they're going to be doing an event or being showcased anywhere, but they've been buying up game properties left and right since 2016, and people are wondering, when are we going to see some of these? We've seen very little from THQ Nordic since all that began. Among the many IPs that they own the rights to is Kingdoms of Amalur. They can't do a remaster. They don't own the... EA has the rights to do a remaster of, Reckoning if they want to, but I would love to learn that we will be getting a sequel to Reckoning in the form of Kingdoms of Amalur something or other, Oh, that would be really, really cool news. I've also really become a Monster Hunter World fan. It was my surprise game of the year for 2018, and so I would love to get more news about Iceborne, the big expansion that they recently revealed, which is coming out, I think, in September. I'd love to get a bunch more info about that during E3. Enough time has passed that Monster Hunter copycats like God Eater and some others, they could announce at this point upcoming games that, like Monster Hunter World, are following a trend to bring new players into the genre, which is often off-putting and known for its complexity and lack of good tutorials and game info. So I would love to have more that follow suit and, like Monster Hunter World, become more accessible for people that maybe, like me, are just now getting interested in the monster hunting genre because of the conveniences added to Monster Hunter in Monster Hunter World. Let's see. Short wait times for announced games. These next few wishes have been on my wish list for years and years. I prefer 6 months or less between an announcement and a release. Games releasing 6 months or more after next year's E3 should wait to be talked about until next year's E3. No CG trailers, please, without gameplay right on its heels, because those just feel like empty promises without some kind of gameplay being shown. So whether through gameplay footage with commentary or a live demo with commentary, show me how these games are played so I just know what the heck we're looking at here. A celebration of gaming. I love that about E3 every year, that it's this celebration, this focus of gaming, this excuse for me to spend, a week just immersed in video game entertainment-related stuff. But along with that celebration can sometimes come a greater assignment to their value than they really should have in our lives, and the way that they're talked about. They're just elevated as part of the excitement in ways that they really shouldn't be. So I think we already have enough trouble with that as gamers of prioritizing games and their significance and importance in life too much. So I'd love for them to celebrate games, but without assigning too much significance and value to them. Entertainment. I love well-crafted shows and surprises or outrageous and audacious moments and quotes that are shocking to us, but I'm not looking for people to jab others or to be arrogant. I'm not looking for that. I'm also not looking for failure or humiliation for anybody. Just these cool, memorable, entertaining moments. And then I'd also love something cool that's available right now. Something that I will legit be excited about or interested in playing that's available right now. I always love those kinds of surprises. They're, never these big AAA games, but sometimes there's like an indie thing or like a AA thing that is like, oh man, that looks kind of interesting. So I'd love something that's right in my wheelhouse of the things that I like that's available right now. That'd be cool. And then finally, the game design revolution that I've been wanting for years that I call failure adaptivity. I want to see someone move forward with this revolution in their game. Maybe it's going to be more and more possible with these new consoles that are brewing in the future, and so I can imagine us hearing about this coming in games that are being developed for those new consoles. What's the concept? The concept is that when you die or you fail in some way, that you don't get set back in time to retry the same material again. That's something I've hated about video games since playing Super Mario Brothers on the NES. Instead, I want the world to change and react to my failure rather than bumping me back and forcing me to do something again. And I know that that would take a lot of planning and programming, or maybe some kind of way to procedurally generate a bunch of elements of the game so that the game can adapt and recreate what it is based on, what you're doing or failing at in the game. I would love to see that happen. I think we're still a long way off from that, but I'd love to see hints of it happening this year in games that are talked about at E3. Speaking of games, I would love to see some particular things. One, man, it's been on my wish list since 2015, and I think there have actually been rumblings that it's coming, a new BioShock game. Oh man, I would love to hear and get even some gameplay footage on a 2019 release date for a new BioShock game. Give me an excuse to go back and play through the 3 BioShock games that have already been released to get ready for that. That would be some really cool news that I know would excite a lot of people aside from me as well. In a similar vein, I'd like to hear about a Singularity 2. Back in 2015, one of the devs tweeted going back to Katorga 12, which is the name of the island that Singularity 2 takes place on. Now, at the time that Singularity came out, it was fairly well accepted, but it was also kind of criticized a little bit for like being a BioShock clone or just being a BioShock ripoff or whatever, And gosh, when we haven't had a BioShock game in so long, wouldn't you like a really solid BioShock ripoff right about now? And so I would love to see that Singularity 2 actually materialize, and even if it's just maybe like a remaster, that would be kind of cool. We'll see. I would like, this has been on my wish list since 2015, I'd like a single player Justice League or DC Universe action RPG, specifically an open world or open city style game. Maybe like the Saints Row engine would be really well suited to this kind of game. I look at a game like the Injustice fighting game series, and as someone who's not a fighting fan, I just feel like, oh my gosh, that story is being wasted. I know that fighting fans really appreciate that. I don't want them to lose that, But I'm thinking to myself, RPGs are really the games that stories are most conducive to, at least compared to a fighting game, I think. And so, man, get those writers, those art designers, those voice actors on a DC Universe single-player open-world action RPG. I would kind of freak out a little bit. Let's see here. Cyberpunk 2077 is reportedly going to be at E3 this year, probably on Microsoft's stage, I would guess. I want to learn 2 things. One, that there's an easy mode for Cyberpunk 2077, and there's also an option to turn off nudity. I think that's a real long shot, but come on, CD Projekt Red. Being edgy and, making a game that's for grown-ups doesn't mean that we have to objectify women at the same time. I would like lots more info about this mysterious game that I saw in coverage last year called Atomic Heart, which is at least coming out for PC. I hope that it's coming out for consoles too, but it looks a little bit like a story-type shooter, like a BioShock type of thing. So I'd love to get a lot more about Atomic Heart and a 2019 release date. That would be cool. And then just 2 more game-related wishes. The first is Neverwinter Nights 1 and 2 and Icewind Dale are reportedly coming to consoles, which that's really cool news to me. I love that kind of real-time with pause, isometric RPG gameplay, but I enjoyed partly, those games on the PC because of the console commands that were available with them. So if I got impatient now and then, I'm like, I don't really want to grind right now, or, oh, this is getting a little too hard for me. Let me just level up. I use a code to level up, Or if I'm playing like a user-based, a user-created game, and it seems a little like the difficulty spikes up and down, I'm like, I don't really want to deal with this fight. Let's use God mode right now. So I would love to hear that, not only are these games coming to consoles with a release date, but that they will also have console commands available as people play them on their consoles. And then finally, I'd like a tease and a release window for Two Worlds 3. I know that this is in some form of pre-production, probably still really early on, where, the last I heard a few months ago is that we're still years out from this game releasing, but it would still be nice to get something about Two Worlds 3 or some other open-world fantasy RPG where you can play as a dedicated magic user. There are some open-world RPGs since Skyrim, like The Witcher, or Elix, which ended up being kind of disappointing to me, but I never felt like with The Witcher 3 that I could play as like a dedicated magic user. You always have to do sword and sorcery, but I just want to do straight up mage sometimes, and that's pretty rare in like open-world games. There's a massive Skyrim-shaped hole in the industry right now that Bethesda is not likely to fill anytime soon. So I want someone to have been working on a game that they're ready to announce that's just going to swoop in, that looks really promising to fit that kind of mold, releasing in 2019 or the first half of 2020. Oh, come on, that would be great. Now, as I said, I do like to try and keep my expectations in check, Historically speaking, a number of games that I have been really interested in because of what I've seen of them at E3 have ended up disappointing me. Games like I Am Setsuna, Agents of Mayhem, Cosmic Star Heroine, Elix, and Rage 2 more recently. I do think that E3 can be enjoyed and celebrated as a representation of what developers are aiming for. But we don't want to set our hopes for happiness on how these games actually turn out. That's just going to lead to disappointment and anger inevitably. 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 through 17 in the ESV says, "Do not love the world or the things in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the desires of the flesh and the desires of the eyes and pride in possessions, is not from the Father, but it's from the world. And the world is passing away, along with all its desires. But whoever does the will of God abides forever." And Ecclesiastes 1, verses 8 through 11 in the ESV says, "All things are full of weariness. A man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, 'See, this is new'? It has been already in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of later things yet to be among those who come after." So today's new hotness is just destined to become tomorrow's been there, done that, leaving us looking for that next fix. The things that we enjoy in this life are all going to fade. But God does not change. He is the ultimate source of all this creativity and excellence that we enjoy in life. Any finite good becomes hellishly boring given enough time. But God is infinite and inexhaustible as a source of beauty and wonder. And he promises us himself, increasingly in this life and then also eternally, as we are pursuing him now and as we will fully and forever enjoy him in his eternal kingdom. So our hope for stable and lasting happiness should be looked for in him. All right, well, that's all I've got for now. Have fun watching E3 and all the coverage on the internet. I'll be immersing myself in it, as I said, from June 8th through 14th, posting videos throughout that time in reaction to what I see and hear, so I hope you'll keep checking back for that. Thanks for watching.